Good evening. I call the special city council meeting on October 29th, 2024 to order. Will you please stand for the pledge of allegiance? Councilor Carolian.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you don't mind standing just for a minute, I just want to have a moment of silence. I don't know if all of you know or not, but Ralph Torr, who was a longtime city council here, really an icon in the city, has passed away. And Dennis DeShano, who was an administrative captain in the Rochester Police Department for several years, has passed away this week. So I'd just like to have a moment of silence for those two. Thank you.
It should also be mentioned that Ralph Torr was a veteran, a Purple Heart, and a true American hero.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. That is true. He truly was an American hero. Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councilor Credo?
Present.
Councilor Dejafroid?
Present.
Councilor Horn?
Yeah.
Councilor Fitzpatrick?
Here.
Councilor Fontenot?
Present.
Councilor Herman?
Present.
Councilor Carolian?
Present.
Councilor Richardson?
Present.
Councilor Sullivan?
Present.
Councilor Turner?
Present.
Councilor Walker?
Present.
Deputy Mayor Hammond?
Present.
Mayor Callahan?
Present, we have a quorum. Thank you for all attending the special meeting. Next up is communications from the mayor. With a lot of good things happened in the past 2 weeks. The Foley Marathon, that was 5K, that was held at the community center. It was the 10th anniversary. Our congressional delegation was there, Senator Shaheen, Senator Hassan, and Congressman Pappas. And they gave, it was kind of neat, they gave a congressional proclamation they read. It was 10th anniversary. If you're not familiar with James Foley, he's resident of Rochester. His family, longtime residents here. And he was captured during the Middle East War and was killed by the terrorists while he was captured. Murdered. Thank you. All right. A few other things. I'll turn it over to the deputy mayor on the
coast.
Yeah, the
bus.
coast.
This afternoon, I met with the Chamber of Commerce and Coast Bus. We gave a little talk. Basically, Brad Nichols did most of the talking, and Laura Ring and I kind of questioned him on the coast transit and the effects of affordable housing and transportation in the community, and how coast can help. Because affordable housing is moving further and further north. Affordable housing, and so coast can play a big part in that, and trying to get business awareness that a lot of people can travel back and forth to work. They're basically asking businesses maybe be a little flexible on start and end times, and if you're a nonprofit, you get discounted fares for your employees. So it was a nice educational forum. There was quite a few people there from the chamber. So it was nice. It was an education for me and for a lot of people that were there. So,
thank you for attending that. Last Tuesday, myself, the deputy mayor, and Councilor Herman went to the ceremony for Potter's Bakery, where Alcogen, I should pronounce it right.
Alcogen, yes.
Alcogen. They gave a $10,000 check for the sensory room that they're building at Potter's House. If you're not familiar, Potter's House hires and works with a lot of the autistic children in our area, and they need a sensory room to kind of cool off and calm down a little bit, and they're working on that. They're in the middle of a capital campaign. We're looking to raise $50,000, and they're more than halfway there. Alcogen's contributed 10. Hey, great Friday. Thank you. Myself and the city manager went to the YMCA toddlers Halloween party. That was awesome. A great job by them. I don't know if anybody's here from the recreation department or not, but what a great job they do. A lot of moms, a lot of young families there with kids 2 to 5. It's probably, I'd say 50 to 60 children there, well attended. They seem to know each other. So it's great work by the recreation department to bring those young families together in Rochester. Obviously, Friday night we had the Halloween events down there with Main Street downtown. And down at the high school, you had Friday Night Lights, Dover against Spalding football, and big rivalry, and I was glad Spalding won. All right, so now I have something to read. In the spirit of transparency and openness, I want to share some important personal news with the council, municipal staff, and most importantly, our residents, business owners, and other stakeholders throughout the city of Rochester. Recently, I've diagnosed with lymphoma. First, I want to reassure everyone that I feel great, I'm responding well to treatment, and I'm working with an exceptional team of doctors and nurses to overcome this diagnosis. I'm confident in their care and fully determined to beat this. I believe it's important to be upfront about this diagnosis because while I plan to continue serving as mayor, there will be times when deputy mayor will fill in for me. Additionally, there's going to be times where I can't attend large public events due to concerns about my immune system and recovering. That said, I want to be absolutely clear. I'm not going anywhere. I'm committed to continuing my service as mayor. I remain fully dedicated to Rochester's progress and growth. We make great strides as leaders in housing, development, revitalization, education, arts and culture, and public safety. And I intend to keep pushing forward that agenda. Now, with that said, let's get to work.
Here.
Resolution approving the Tri-City Agreement related to the Willen Warming Center. First reading and consideration for adoption.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Discussion.
I
Councilor Turner.
just had a question, why the reduction from 60 beds to 50 beds?
So, Councilor Turner, what council is voting on this evening is the intermunicipal agreement, just to make sure clear for the public knowledge as well. This is the intermunicipal agreement between Dover, Rochester, Somersworth, and Stratford County, which dictates the financial contributions that Dover and Rochester make towards the operations of the facility. Additionally, it obligates that our EMD, our emergency management directors, will be participating together in the operation of the facility, as well as what the county will be providing, which is the contract management and vendor oversight through a subcontractor agreement over the operations. They will name the Tri-Cities as additional insured entities in terms of liability. They're providing that coverage as well. So what's before you this evening is that contract. The beds fall under the MOU, the subcontractor agreement between Stratford County and the operator. The RFP referenced 50 beds, I think is what you're referencing as well. Two proposals were submitted. What you may have read about in the media was around the time where the notice of award was made for the proposals. And at that point, it states in the RFP, which is similar to prior years, that the contract then gets negotiated between the operator and the county. At that point, when you read in the media, that was still in process. So really the goal is just making sure, especially for the host communities, that this is managed in a manner that is safe for the guests. You may have heard about beds versus no beds. What's been finalized with the MOU with Stratford County does include beds, does include food, does include transportation. So the same number of beds will be available to the operator and for the guests for those operations based on the need as last year. So that's been finalized in that MOU with the county. So it said 50 in the RFP. Through that process, there will be beds and there'll be the same number of beds available to the operator for the guests for operation as last year. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, good question. Anybody else? Councilor Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So to that end, is there an outlet to which people would have, a meeting like this for the operating procedure with Stratford County?
You got that one?
If you want to,
No, we're going to say the same thing, go ahead. Go ahead.
well, that is the contract with the county. So that if the county has any meetings as part of that process, but really, for this stage, obviously, if Rochester doesn't participate, then there is enough funding, and so they wouldn't be able to enter into that agreement. But that contract hasn't been signed at this point. The mayor, I don't know if you want to add to that, but.
No, that's pretty much what I was going to say. Are you talking about a meeting with the county?
And I have a follow-up if I may, but it's more just for the clarification that, a lot of people on the talk going on in the media recently was more about that, and I
About
think,
the beds?
yeah, well, it was about what's in the Stratford, what's in the county and the subcontractor
Yeah.
contract, not what we're dealing with tonight.
Yeah,
That's
the
what-
city manager hit it on the nose. We
Yeah.
hadn't even had a meeting. We were meeting Thursday when they went with this Article Tuesday. I actually told a reporter, I said, this is premature, we haven't met yet. And I told some of the people who were quoted in the paper, I said, we haven't met yet because of vacations and getting together.
Yeah, and if I may follow up,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, it was just, I know that city council members were kind of told why, we needed to make this happen pretty quick. I was just wondering if the city manager would mind just relaying that, like why we needed to have this meeting, now, we couldn't wait.
Okay.
Sure, yes. So the warming center is slated to open November 15th. Obviously, your next meeting is until November 12th, and we wanted to make sure that there was ample time for the operator, if approved, to be able to stand up the facility in preparation for opening. Additionally, they would want to meet with local service providers and start engaging those connections, engaging with local welfare directors on additional procedures and communications. So we wanted to make sure that there was ample time before the opening of the 15th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Carolian, then Counselor Walker.
Thank you. There was some language in there that was talking about bathrooms versus porta potties, and that they'd prefer not to use porta potties. Can you speak to that, whether it's going to be one or the other, or is that appropriate to discuss at this time?
That's part of the MOU of the county. That would be at the discretion of the operator, subject to the approval, again, of the management of the operator through the MOU. But again, that's also subject to the local code compliance as well in those conversations. So that would be up to their discretion in terms of management as well. When there are porta potties outside of the building, that requires additional staffing coverage, management. So the bathrooms are available on the interior, and then that's worked out through that process.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Counselor Walker.
Yes, under this MOU, are the 3 cities that are funding this operation, their welfare departments going to be engaged so they can facilitate any welfare needs with the residents that are at the warming center?
Yes, so I can speak for Rochester especially. Our welfare director, Todd Marsh, is directly involved. I know the other communities' welfare departments, local welfare, are involved, and will also be engaged through their EMDs as well. So there's that communication point. But yes, local service providers and local welfare will be communicating, especially in terms of capacity as well, because they'll have procedures in place on, okay, if we're having challenges with capacity, making sure that we're following up with local welfare, with local services, that there's that communication in place.
Counselor Alex. You got a follow-up?
I have
I'm
a
sorry.
follow-up.
Go, I didn't see your finger. Go ahead.
If, for whatever reason, we get beyond 50, what happens when we have an overflow or more people than 50, say 80 or more?
Right. So my understanding is that there'll be more beds available than 50. If there is need for that with guests, then they would work with the local communities to have more than 50 as needed. So when we get to pushing the limits of what can be approved in an emergency situation, capacity in the building, and what's manageable in a safe manner. So I think within 80 capacity, it could be managed within the current facility, and there'd be an ongoing conversation about, is this an ongoing issue? Is this becoming difficult to manage? And then we would be responding with those backup plans and other communications about managing that capacity. But people are not going to be turned away. If there are 51
No one's
people,
going to be turned away
no
with
one's going to
this,
be
right?
turned away. If there's 51 people, there will be 51 beds.
But if you have 85 or 90 people show up, that excess will be provided for, right?
Yeah, my understanding is that they would manage that
Okay.
within the facility.
Counselor Dejabois.
Thank you. My question and concern is around the timing of all this. I understand that it's primarily an agreement that's being entered between the county and the contractor here. But we also, I don't think it's unreasonable for us to condition our support on whether or not we support the terms of that agreement. But it also, at this point, this late stage, I don't think I'm alone on the council feeling a little bit like we're forced into this because we kind of have to say yes, because if we don't, there won't be a warming center at all. Can you speak to the timing of how the proposal process went out? Why are we not doing this, or why didn't we do this a couple months ago rather than right down at the last minute?
Well, you may recall that there had been conversations about last year being the last year of the Willand being available for this purpose. So I know earlier in the year, there was a look at alternatives. Some alternative properties were evaluated. It got to the point where there was a realization that this is our only option for this season. And it comes down to if the host communities would allow for one more truly final year, so as the Tri-Cities can work over the winter to find that alternative plan moving forward. This is something that kind of came out of COVID-19. It was purchased during COVID-19. Back in 2022, there was an agreement that we would continue to collaborate on this effort within the Tri-Cities as that three-legged stool plan, you might recall, was pursued, which involved the county nursing home. At the time, that was being discussed at the county level. And the plan was that we would continue to provide this in the meantime, as well as pursue other aspects of that plan, knowing that the plan would be that with the construction of the new nursing home, the current nursing home would then become transitional housing shelter. Now that, in the meantime, that progress has waned, and that is not a certain outcome at this time. This has been extended a little bit longer than I think we initially planned, or at least without having that concrete plan anymore with the nursing home. So this has gone on a little bit longer than I think we all had initially envisioned or agreed to. So it got to the point where we were looking at alternatives, knowing that last year was supposed to be the last year. When we realized we were starting to get towards the fall and needed to have a plan in place before the cold came in, we wanted to make sure that we were ahead of the game and had something for the winter for emergency purposes. That's when the RFP was put out, and not even knowing that it was a guarantee at that point, frankly. So we're fortunate to have the opportunity to have it open for this one last season while we continue to look at a longer-term alternative over the coming months. But that's the background a little bit about looking at alternatives and then needing to put it out to make sure that we had something for this season.
That's it. Yes. Councilor Credo, then Councilor Fontenot.
Thank you. So I'd like to apologize first. We got an email with all this information at 11:19 a.m., followed up by another email at 2:41 p.m. I did all of my emails checking this morning. I've been reading up on this for over a week to try to familiarize myself with the RFP, with the information. I've been in contact with multiple community members that have had concerns, specialists from the community about this, and I have a few questions because as of right now, I've been trying to speed read all of this in the last 15 to 20 minutes, which is all the time that I've had to read this new RFP. Can somebody please point to me where it says that they will be guaranteed beds?
I don't think it's.
I see under Exhibit B, additional responses. Do you mean 50 beds or 50 people, question mark? Does not specifically say how many beds will be given.
Yep,
It's under the rules.
Yeah, and Counselor, to clarify, this isn't an RFP. This is the Memorandum of Subcontractor Agreement between Stratford County and East Coast Evolution Leadership. So
Thank you.
I want to be clear that the procurement process has concluded, that the RFP closed, that the Q&A is part of that. That's for the bidders that are bidding on that proposal. I think there's been some confusion in the communities about submitting Q&As now that the bids are closed. The Q&A is for if you want to bid on an RFP and submit a question. So the bids were opened, the proposals were received, the Q&A period had ended, and then the notice of award is issued, and then the contract is negotiated. And this is the product of that as the final step. Now, in reference to the RFP, you'll note that under the terms and conditions of scope of services, That directly references the scope that is in the RFP. So all of these items about the operation, they had directly taken that out of the RFP to make sure that it reflected the same scope from the RFP in terms of
And these pages aren't numbered.
Hours
Which
of
page are you looking
operation.
at, City Manager?
2 and 3 and 4. And then in reference to beds specifically, that's the SOP at the end. So you'll see under bunks and cots, reference to guests being provided bedding and beds as well.
In what pages? Again, I don't have numbers here. I see a lot of people nodding like they're looking for it as well.
Yeah, so that would be,
The last
We go
three
to the
pages
very
of that
back.
packet. And the heading is Woolland Emergency Center Rules.
so that's the third page
Second to
the-
the last from the bottom.
Thank you.
of the operating
Beds
procedure.
and cots.
The
30
operating
down.
procedures, correct. And obviously, the preference would be to have these materials well in advance. Again, this is a collaborative effort between 4 different governmental entities. As we know, government is not the most, government moves a little bit slowly at times, and we're all collaborating on a project. It can take some time to iron these things out. And so with the timing that we had between the procurement process and the opening, working these things out does take some time, and this is as soon as we got it was today. As soon as you had it, I sent it to you to make sure you had this information, but these things do take time, and as you can imagine, coordinating between 3 cities and a county takes time.
Without question, it's going to take time, and you're dealing with multiple cities, and I want everybody to understand how hard every city and every city worker has to be in order to get this to work. So thank you for that work. I think people need to know about it. With that said, I do see where it says now beds and cots. That makes me happy. I'm also curious, does it say somewhere in here around the number cap that we've been issued of 50 and allowing people, is there anything in this that will guarantee us, once we go over that 50, that this establishment is going to allow people up to the needed number? I did read early on here in the first few pages that it's saying something to the extent of they will coordinate with 211 in order to help with other services to find if it's adequate for them. But I have yet, because there are numerous pages here and I've had very limited time to review it, is there anything that holds their feet to the fire, so to speak, so that we can be assured that these unhoused people are going to have a place in the worst moment of their life? I guess I'm just looking for that to be in writing so that we can hold them to that standard if something doesn't happen.
Sorry, Councilor, to clarify, what specifically are you looking to have in writing?
I am looking specifically for the number of people that will be allowed there, and is there a specific cap that we should be knowing about?
So I will say it is not capped at 50. In terms of the specific number that's allowed, again, that's a code matter that's subject to Somersworth Fire Marshal, which, as we know, can, if you have, let's say that the total number of beds are occupied and there are more guests that have come to the center for that evening, they would then work with local fire marshal on additional capacity for the evening, even if the beds are at capacity. I can't give you that number because that's worked out between the fire marshal and the operator, but I will say that this is not saying that you are capped at 50 beds and that's it.
Is there anything
That's
that
your
says
question.
how many or the most amount of people that will be able to be used there? Is there anything in this? I'm not seeing anything.
It's really a fluid number with the EMDs. They work with EMDs to decide what the number will be.
Because the thing we have to keep in mind is this is an emergency warming shelter. And so in that case, the EMDs have to make the determination on what is subject to code in an emergency. So it is under their authority to allocate capacity based on It may not be what is normally permissible under code because this is an emergency situation, and so that is at their discretion because they're already pushing the limits of what the facility can accommodate. They need to make sure that it's safe.
That makes total sense. Thank you. Because I think one of the worry that I've heard from so many people is once you hit that 50, are these folks who have not had necessarily a lot of experience in this in this county, are they going to be turning people away or going, or just kind of turning their back on them? But I'm hearing that is not going to be the option here, which makes me feel a lot better. With that, I feel pretty good about what I'm seeing here. I don't see a number cap. I've heard what you had to say. And it makes sense why we can't put a number cap in that, because that has to do with EMDs. Thank you.
Fontenot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, yeah, I don't want to try to go over too much of what has already been said this evening, you know, only to kind of reiterate that the last week, probably for everyone, has been really frustrating because, you know, an article came out in the Fosters, indicated there weren't even going to be beds there. People were going to sit in the chairs and put their heads on the table. And all of that stuff was pretty alarming, I guess. You know, made us think, well, who is this new operator that we don't know that's coming over here, and how are they going to operate this thing? So, you know, I will say that in the yesterday, there was another article in the Fosters from the chairman of the county commissioners explaining some of the agreements that were made regarding beds and number of people and et cetera. And then we got some more information here that has answered a lot of our questions and I think helped to satisfy a lot of the concerns of how this thing was going to be run. But I do hope going forward, you know, first of all, let's all get together and try to get together with the county and try to get that new nursing home in place and maybe move that whole project, that whole process forward. You know, if that had taken place 2 years ago, when we all thought it was going to, we probably wouldn't even be having this meeting tonight, which would have been a wonderful thing. But you know, so let's see if maybe we can move that process forward. And again, I know every year we've been in this position where, and they've said it again this year, that this is definitely the last year for the Willand Center. But the homeless population is not decreasing, you know. It hasn't decreased since last year. The issue hasn't gone away since last year, and it doesn't go away by us ignoring it. So we really need something more permanent in place. I don't think that it's something that each individual city or town should be trying to address on their own. I think it should be addressed in a more regional way, like by the county. But we need to do something more permanent, we really do. So, again, with that said, you know, if we do find ourselves in this position again next year, let's try our best to address it in August or September so that because exactly what has happened is, you know, all these counselors have received all this information in the last day, and we know it's cold out tonight, you know? If we don't vote on this right away, there is no plan B. If we turn this down, it's not like, okay, we're not satisfied with what we're being told about this operator, so we'll vote no tonight, and a different operator will be put in place. That's not Plan B. There is no Plan B. So, so we need to go with Plan A, and then monitor it, and ask the people that are involved with those residents and with the community to monitor it throughout the year and make sure that we're getting what we expect from this operator. I think that's the best we can do. And the other thing to remember is that we have no line item control in this. It's not like we can come in here and say, all right, well, we're willing to give this amount of money, but we want to change the count from 50 to 62 or what. We don't have any, we simply are going to vote on, you know, putting this money from Rochester's share of money forward to be used towards this situation. So it feels a bit like our hands are tied somewhat in this situation, and that's frustrating for all of us. But but let's go forward with it and then monitor it and make the best of this situation if we can. Thank you.
Counselor Herman.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Willard Emergency Warming Center rules. Under items, check-in, all guests must check in bags and winter jackets upon arrivals. All guest items will go into an individual bin that no one, including staff, will have access to. Well, having been in that building, where are these bins going to be taken? And these people have been out in the woods for a considerable amount of time. They are bringing in bedrolls, they're bringing in camp stoves, whatever else they happen to have out there. Where are those bins going to be located? Are they going to be outside? Are they going to be inside?
They'll be inside.
But I don't see there's space for those bins and individual.
I might be able to help answer that question. So my experience in working there last year, just for even less than a day, is they do have a room, locked key, that they can keep those items in that they used last year.
And there's another item down here that on the alcohol and other illegal drugs, they are saying that staff reserves the right to search guests' belongings with guest oversight if they have a legitimate safety concern. Well, I think there should be some process that they have to name what their safety concern is and tell the guest the safety concern that they're having, and because otherwise it opens it up to a thing that I would find offensive if I went into a building and was told, oh, I'm suspicious of you, so therefore I get to search. So I wouldn't like that. So I think we need to inform the county that they need to look at those two provisions and make sure that they're adequately involved. And the room he was talking about, I did not see that that would do individual bins. And if you're doing it 50 bins and they have 80 or 90 people in the building, that gives you 40 bins that you don't have. So, but as Councilor Farnell was saying, that I don't see how we can vote not to do this at this late date if all we're doing is funding.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing that, we'll do a roll call vote. And right. Just make sure the clerk, what we're voting on. We're authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the city of Dover, city of Somersworth, and Stratford County to operate the emergency extreme cold weather warming center for the 24-25 winter season. Do a roll call vote.
Counselor Carolian?
Yes.
Counselor Hammond?
Yes.
Counselor Turner? Yes. Counselor Fontenot?
Yes.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yes.
Counselor Horn?
Yes.
Counselor DeJeuffois?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Herman?
Yes.
Counselor Credo?
Yes.
Counselor Fitzpatrick?
Yes.
Counselor Richardson?
Yes.
Mayor Callahan?
Yes, motion carries. Number 5, introduction to the fiscal year 2026 action plan hearing and the fiscal year 2025 through 2030 consolidated plan hearing, refer to public hearing to be held on November 19th, 2024. Ms. Wright, is there something you need to talk about with this?
Hello, this is just referred to a public hearing on November 19th. This is the first public hearing for this plan. Every year, we've done an annual action plan. This is the 5-year consolidated plan process. So this is just for the next 5 years. Our consolidated plan does set to expire in summer of 2025, so next year. So this is just a refer to our first public hearing at the start of the process, and then we will have a second public hearing in the spring after the process has formed a draft.
Thank you. All right, any questions from Ms. Ray? She's up here. All right, thank you. All right, so we refer that public hearing on November 19th, 2024. And just remember, we're not going to have a meeting next Tuesday. That's general election, so we're meeting on the 12th. Our general meeting will be on the 12th at 6 p.m. So without any objection, I adjourn the meeting.